Once upon a time, Zizi Kodwa was shocked at the revelations made at the Zondo Commission. He sounded like an ANC member who just couldn't believe the dirt he heard regarding ANC officials and government employees receiving bribes over and over again. Until it was revealed that Zizi Kodwa himself received over R1 million in bribes.
Zizi told the Commission how Bosasa paid 3 NPA officials to get information from them on the progress of an SIU investigation. Zizi had added that Mti departed from his position in 2007 and had been paid by Bosasa during his tenure and for his assistance and the payments.
Of course, hearing all sorts of allegations. But what was interesting today was that the NPA was very much in the picture. Let me bring in the national acting spokesperson of the ANC, Zizi Kodwa, who's been sitting through and listening in and hearing really what sort of issues were going on, particularly at the NPA. I know that there's a new head coming, but from what you have heard as the ANC, what's your take?
The revelations are shocking. It's a bombshell after bombshell. All what it says is that as a country and a government, we were right to establish this commission. Because I would imagine outside of this commission, we would not have been able to find out some of the things that we see, although people have got a right to come and give their alternative version. But an allegation, a revelation, that there was an attempt to capture law enforcement agencies. It was meant to create a state of lawlessness in the country. It was meant to create a state of mafia in the country. And that, I think, we must appreciate the reason why President Ramaphosa has now established commissions to investigate in a number of institutions, whether they're public institutions, in order to restore confidence, but at the same time, look at the law enforcement agencies, because the attempt to make them ineffective was an attempt to undermine our efforts to fight crime, to fight corruption. We welcome some of these revelations.
That was Zizi Kodwa, who was still clean since revelations regarding himself had not started coming through. From these words, one might assume that truly the ANC people care about the truth. You might assume that Zizi Kodwa really believes in this message that he's spewing, until it came out a little over a year later that Zizi Kodwa himself was dirty.
During his testimony before the inquiry, E&S Forensic MD Stephen Powell alleged that Kodwa received kickbacks from McKay's company amounting to R2 million when he was ANC spokesperson. This was discovered after Powell conducted a forensic investigation into the IT company EOH and tender irregularities involving the public sector.
Please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Zizi Kodwa reiterated that the money he received from former EOH executive Johan McKay was a loan and not a bribe. He stood his ground that he was never captured in exchange to influence tender decisions. Kodwa said he regarded the money he got from McKay as assistance he got from a friend during difficult financial times.
I knew I was not doing anything wrong. I offered my personal bank account. A lot of people condemned me for that. A lot of people. Why do you give personal account? I say because I was not doing anything wrong. Because they are expecting, if you ask for donation, there must be this black bag you carry around. Because I knew in my mind, very clear, that I was not committing any crime. I was asking for financial assistance from a friend.
As proceedings continued, pressed on why emails were sent to him if he was not involved, the Deputy Minister stuck to his gun, saying that he had never involved himself in any criminal activities.
Wouldn't we all love to have the same friends that Zizi Kodwa has? Friends that give you loans of millions of rands without any interest rate and without any set payment date?
In relation to that loan of R1 million, did you conclude any written loan agreement with Mr. McKay?
No, Chairperson.
According to Zizi Kodwa, his job as Deputy Minister is not a stable job. And on top of that, his Deputy Minister's salary was just too low for him to get by.
The understanding between Mr. McKay and I, Chairperson, was that to an extent that you, my friend, you need assistance, I'll give you a loan on the understanding that when your finances stabilizes, you'll repay me. And I can assure you that even if I speak to him today, I will still assure him that as soon as I get a stable job, the job I have today is a very political appointment. I can be removed tomorrow. So I can't commit that I will pay him to me as a deputy minister. But the commitment, he knows as a friend that the commitment is there to pay him back.
Just a reminder that deputy ministers are paid over 2 million rands a year. Anyway, because his salary was so low, he needed millions from his friends to get through some difficult times. Yet the money given to him for difficult times was spent on a luxury car. I think what constitutes a difficult time for you and I as citizens is very, very different from what the comrades understand to be difficult times.
And the elephant in the room, has he paid the money back?
You owe Mr. Mackay R1 million. You've explained earlier that if he were to come to you tomorrow and say, all right, I've had enough of waiting, you must pay, that you wouldn't be in a position to pay.
When Zizi Kodwa was asked what he thought of the Zondo Commission revelations about ANC members and government officials getting bribes, he had a lot to say, didn't he? He was very disappointed about the dirt and happy that the commission was exposing these dealings. Now it was his turn, and when it was him, the dealings were no longer bribes but rather loans from a friend. Imagine that.
If you look at this template, it provides for repayment with interest at the prime rate. Did you discuss interest with Mr. Mackay?
Not at all.
You understand that this loan that Mr. Mackay made you attracts interest, or is it interest-free?
No, this is just a draft which we did not sign.
Why is it that these politicians mostly get these loans from businessmen that stand to gain from government tenders? And why do these loans not have contracts that indicate the loan amount, interest rates, repayment plans, and dates? I mean, years later, Zizi Kodwa has not paid back the so-called loan, or at least a portion of this loan, and it doesn't sound like he intends on paying anything of this loan back. Meanwhile, the business person that gave him this loan seems to not be bothered by this non-payment. Instead of getting loans from banks like you and I, they usually get loans from business people who are in business with the government, or who are about to get business from the government, or simply people who got money through illegal means. More than R1 million. Why? Because of what? Because we are friends. Zizi Kodwa claimed that they were friends and this was a loan. Yet he never paid the loan back. But it was a loan.
Are you in it? If Mr. Mackay asked for the money tomorrow, would you be able to pay it back to him?
This is a conversation between friends. He knows very well. He can't rock up one morning at my house and say, I demand my 1 million. He knows very well that I will not have that 1 million tomorrow. So this is a conversation which is not a normal loan agreement with strict conditions. That's why it's a flexible between friends.
Guys, when is a bribe a bribe? Do we want the bribed person to say it was a bribe? Why would the bribe recipient say the money you see here is a bribe?
Mr. Kodwa, do I understand from your arguments, that's not from your arguments, from your answers, that thus far you still haven't repaid any amounts of that R1 million loan?
Correct.
So basically, these politicians have friends that are happy to give them 1 to 2 million rands for no reason. No reason at all. When confronted about it, Zizi Kodwa claimed that it was a loan, even though he did not pay it back, and the friend must have said, even if you don't pay it back, it's fine, it's just 2 million rand, you know? These people think we are very dumb and they are very smart, Shim. This is similar to the loans that Minister Simelane got from VBS. Loans that Jacob Zuma got from VBS for Nkandla. Similar to the loans that Floyd Shivambu received from VBS through his brother Brian Shivambu. Imagine, guys, these politicians have been taking South Africans for children. They have now realized that all they have to say is, it was a loan, and that's it. No need to worry. As long as we say it was a loan, our EFF, ANC and MK fighters will die for us before they allow us to be brought before the courts for these bribes we received and monies we looted. If I am able to say that any money I receive from a businessman is a loan and nothing happens to me, then it means that any amount of money I receive through corruption can be named a loan, and that's it. I keep on living like I did nothing wrong. So when it was other government employees, it was bad, huh? But when it is you, it was a loan. You are not captured. Remember, these ANC people that get these loans are not people without jobs or means. Zizi Kodwa was living in fancy places and EOH was paying for that as well. Guys, what kind of accommodation is it that you have to pay more than 600,000 Rand within 3 months? That is the price of a nice home in certain neighborhoods, yet it is the amount Zizi Kodwa spent on accommodation for 3 months. Just 3 months. Zizi Kodwa was living like a king, raking up hundreds of thousands of rands in expenses, and this friend was just happy to pay. These are not loans. These are obvious bribes for crimes. Why would companies pay for your living expenses when you are not an employee of theirs? Those business expenses are for employees, clients, or contractors. Zizi Kodwa was neither. So why would he receive payments from the business accounts instead of the personal account of the executives? It is obvious. He is basically considered a business expense within the company, and that kind of business expense is called a bribe. That is all.
I offered my personal bank account. A lot of people condemned me for that. A lot of people. Why do you give personal account? I say because I was not doing anything wrong. Because they are expecting, if you ask for donation, there must be this black bag you carry around. Because I knew in my mind, very clear, that I was not committing any crime. I was asking for financial assistance from a friend.
These politicians are people who are getting paid between 100,000 and 400,000 Rand per month. They get motorcades with bodyguards, drivers, and even state-funded housing. Their flights are paid by our taxes. Man, even the electricity, water, and generators are paid for by us. These are people whose lives are very much funded by you, the taxpayer, and they still fail to live within their means, even though they get very high salaries that they don't need to use for housing, transport, water, or electricity. They need to get loans from business people who do business with the government. What kind of an idiot do you have to be to believe that there is nothing suspicious going on with these people and their so-called loans from these business people? If our content is to your liking, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and share these videos with other citizens, and remember to beware of the comrades. So earlier this year, surprisingly, Zizi Kodwa was arrested and started going to court, and many people celebrated, hoping to see a former high-ranking ANC politician in orange overalls and some leg irons.
Palm Ridge Specialized Criminal Court, where the hearing of the bail application of Zizi Kodwa and his co-accused was being heard. They were given bail of 30,000 Rand.
We can actually confirm that the high-ranking ANC official that we spoke of earlier is Mr. Zizi Kodwa, who currently serves as the Sports, Arts and Culture Minister, and he was accompanied by his co-accused, Mr. Jahan McKay. Now, we know that this obviously relates to the Zondo Commission. You may remember some of those allegations that came out, allegations of bribery with respect to Jahan McKay, the businessman and the NEC member and spokesperson of the NEC at the time, which would have been Mr. Zizi Kodwa.
It didn't take long after that for the NPA to start their usual nonsense. The NPA started with delays and postponements.
There was yet another delay in this case, and the reason was that the DPP is still looking or considering the representations that were made. What steps are supposed to be followed when it comes to further representations for charges to be dropped?
The DPP office is still applying its mind in respect of the representations that were lodged by both accused. You'd recall that accused number one, Mr. Kodwa, submitted representations on the last occasions, and those representations had to first go to the office of the regional head of the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court unit before it reaches the office of the DPP. So DPP has now received representations from both accused, and he is still going through the process of applying his mind.
I think a lot of people would be asking that, does the NPA really have a case against Mr. Kodwa? Why are there so many delays from the side of the state when the state has been saying that they are ready to prosecute the two co-accused?
We have indicated our readiness to proceed to trial as the NPA. However, we had to consider the representations that has been lodged by both accused.
Maybe they think we are not looking anymore, because here we are a few months down the line and the embarrassing and shameful National Prosecuting Authority that keeps disrespecting our people and shaming our government-owned entities had this to say.
Well, all that we can say as the NPA is that the DPP exercised his discretion as per mandate and his constitutional obligation. And in deciding in this matter, he had to ensure that there is fairness, that there is transparency, and as well as the fact that the decision that he takes must be in the interest of justice, and also take into consideration the interest of society as well as the interest of the accused before court.
They are withdrawing the charges against Zizi Kodwa out of the interest of justice, society, and the accused. Makes sense. Lots of sense.
Advocate Andrew Chauke took a decision to abandon the prosecution against both Kodwa and McKay. Now, the reasoning behind this decision to abandon the prosecution is premised on the grounds that militated the successful representations that were lodged by both accused to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, in response to their representations, the DPP then called the investigating officer to consult with them. This is after going through the contents of the docket and satisfying himself about what he has evaluated or assessed. They then came to this conclusion, and the deputies as well supported the decision that has been taken by the DPP, that indeed there are now circumstances that changes the prospects of a successful prosecution.
Who still believes that the NPA cares about prosecuting criminal politicians? Who still believes that the NPA is serving the country and citizens and not the comrades? It is either the NPA is very corrupt or they are very incompetent. Personally, I think corruption is at the core. Incompetence may be there, but the main thing is corruption. The charges are withdrawn and the case is closed based on what? Based on what? There is clear evidence that Johan McKay paid money directly into Zizi Kodwa's personal bank account. There is evidence that disputes the loan claims. There is evidence that Zizi Kodwa was living in luxury, being paid for by a business that had no business paying for that accommodation, but the charges are being withdrawn.
Invoice 76, and number is invoice 76, and the reference is Mr. Z. Kodwa.
Correct.
And if you look down at these descriptions of the accommodation, do you recognize these as places where you stayed in Cape Town on the dates in question? So Barbados.
Yes, I do.
Now, this is an invoice that was sent to EOH for that accommodation. And you'll see that the total amount that EOH was billed for that accommodation was 656,200. EOH had a credit with the travel agent, so the amount due was only 426,200. But the amount that was charged for that accommodation was 656,000. And that's all in a space of time from 29 October 2015 to 5 January 2016. Less than 3 months.
After all of this, Zizi Kodwa still wants to come across as a noble man who sacrificed his job as a minister because he wants the office of the minister to remain honorable, you see.
I do welcome this, the decision of the DPP. Of course, I welcome it with mixed feelings, as you know what happened in the past 3 months.
I have no doubt that the DPP, to arrive at this decision, he applied his mind on facts before him, not on the basis of what sometimes we hear in a trial of public court of opinion. When we heard about this, the same day we appeared, we took a decision as a minister to resign. It was not an easy decision because there is no law that requires that if you are charged as a serving minister, you must resign. But I thought it would be inappropriate of a serving minister to have all these charges. Let me ask the president to release me and consider, and just to have time to deal with this matter.
Zizi Kodwa, you know what would have been more appropriate? For you to not be accepting dodgy payments into your bank account. That would have been very, very appropriate.
Now, charges against them were dropped after representations made by both Kodwa and murky.
What were these representations that they're telling us about? How come the representations are being heard in private? Announce them for all of us to hear.
Well, all that we can say as the NPA is that the DPP exercised his discretion. There is transparency, and
if this is a clean case, then the presentation of those representations should convince us too, right? Why should those representations be heard in private? Why were they not presented during the Zondo Commission? Why were they not presented to the NPA before the case was brought to the courts? I don't get it.
So we are not in a position to share the details contained in their representations as well as the factors that informed the DPP's decision. You'll understand that in the nature of work that we are doing, any person that feels dissatisfied with the decision of the DPP may still take this matter on review, especially those who have a legitimate interest in this case. As the NPA, we cannot divulge reasons that inform the DPP's decision, nor share any factors of evidential material that was contained in the docket.
There are certain issues that definitely need to be addressed within our laws. This is not right at all. This nonsense of dropping charges is not new, by the way. Zuma is one of those people whose charges get dropped or withdrawn over and over and over again. And this is the danger of allowing criminals to go scot-free. Let them go and they will go back to commit even more crimes. How do we expect anyone in the public or private sector to stop engaging in corruption if there is no consequence for their corruption, even when it is out in the open? Zizi Kodwa will not stop now. He's braver now. He's smarter now. Next time, he won't use his personal bank account to receive the bribes. The day we fix this country, we need to make sure all these corrupt men and women pay thoroughly and dearly for the damage they have done to this country. For that to happen, we need to make sure that voters become smarter, because ignorant citizens vote for rubbish politicians. Please help us to get there. You can do that by subscribing, sharing the content and liking the videos, as well as donating or joining our channel membership. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Katlego. This is Citizen Concerned. And until next time, beware of the comrades.